morning. I'm Pete Najarian on this short week. Always remember that it's not going through Friday. Actually, tomorrow will be the expiration. So we're just going to jump right into it. Yesterday, we had the markets. They started off pretty calm. Everything was going okay. Then we had this nice spike to the upside. Actually, the Dow up over 300 points. And then it was a steady slide for the rest of the day. After that nice jump early in the first hour or so, we started sliding and sliding and sliding, and we had to rally about 100 points in the last 30 minutes just to finish down 87 points. So a lot of movement once again, a lot of volatility, definitely moving back into the markets. And of course, when we talk about volatility index, 22 to 25, that's a pretty big range. 25 is a level we hadn't been in a while. We actually closed the day over 24. You look at the NASDAQ, kind of the same sort of a thing. We were rallying. We had a pretty nice move to the upside. We were up over 200 points to the upside. That started to slip and didn't stop until we actually finished the day down about 40 points. So the Bitcoin, we talk about this one a little bit here and there, just to kind of update and see where things are actually trading. We did actually trade back underneath that 40,000 level. The 10-year, which had a nice little pop early, kind of slid back a little bit, right around that 2.7, call it, is the area where we find ourselves. When we look at gold yesterday, though, gold had another big run, a nice run up, got over 1982. Didn't close all the way up there at those highs of the day, but those were about the highs for the session yesterday. And crude oil once again recapturing 100. And that's something pretty special because after that pounding that it had taken over the last week or so, this moved back up a little bit methodical and a nice solid move up back over 100, still holding on to that. As a matter of fact, today we'll get into that in just a second. But volumes been lighter. I've been saying that for the last few sessions now. 37 million. That's definitely lighter. We did have Tesla and Apple actually still both trading well over 1 million contracts yesterday. Nonetheless, we are starting to slip a little bit from those averages, and it's been a little bit more consistent the last couple of days. And you'd think maybe in the shortened week, maybe we'd see a little bit more volume. That's not what we're seeing. Energy was the leader yesterday. I talked about crude and the levels that was trading at. Energy was up almost 2% yesterday, 1.7%. And then the financials were kind of the leader to the downside, down about a little over 1%. You look over at the NASDAQ, you can understand why it was down, but not down that bad. When you look at technology, it was down a little 0.3% or so. Semiconductors down about 0.5%. And when I say those semiconductors, we did have a little bit of pressure just across the board there, not really attacking specific names other than, when you take a look at NVIDIA, you do see levels where when you just look back a week or so ago, it's definitely off of those levels, and it's been getting a little bit of punishment of late. Although today, somebody's talking about an upgrade there. Weakness, CarMax definitely stood out for us. Twitter stood out. That was down about 5%, as a matter of fact. Some of the Elon mystique kind of coming off a little bit as he's obviously gotten a lot more attention, especially the board idea. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. Did he file in time? Looks like there's some frustration out there. So maybe those are contributing to why we were seeing Twitter down a little bit. NetEase was down about 3% yesterday with some of those Chinese names. Etsy was down 3.5% or so. You get the idea. AMD under pressure, DocuSign. We did have a great looking day, though, out of Lulu. Now, Lulu just sort of had a big springboard to the upside yesterday. Throw in a little bit of Apple, which had a nice run, kind of pulled off of those highs. Tesla actually finished the day up about 1%. You got Cardinal Health. That actually had a pretty positive day, along with CrowdStrike. That name really had a pretty nice day. We did have some unusual option in some of these various names as well yesterday, just kind of following up with what we were seeing. Ross Stores, CF, that all very strong. And then the beta energy names. Of course, anytime you look at crude and you see those beta names starting to move to the upside, makes a little bit of sense. You had Pioneer, you had APA, you had EOG, those names all moving to the upside. Today, on the other hand, well, we're looking at those PPI numbers, the biggest gain on record. Interesting because the markets weren't really too much movement on that. As a matter of fact, probably a little bit more connected, or at least early on, to the earnings season that's now kicking off. When we kicked that off with JP Morgan, yes, they beat on revenues. Unfortunately, could not beat on the earnings per share. Year over year, those earnings were down a little over 41%. So that gives you an idea of some of the pressures that JP Morgan is dealing with now, and some of the exposure to Russia as well. part of their earnings call from Jamie Dimon. Then I look over at Delta Airlines, absolutely a powerful quarter, talked about how strong things were in March. And obviously Ed Bastian, very, very excited about the return of travel and talking about and pretty bold getting up in front and really being one of those leaders talking about, hey, look, let's get rid of these masks. We'll see when that actually does happen. They pushed it out a month from last month. We'll see if they push it out again, or are they going to roll that out and folks are not going to have to fly with masks anymore? That probably would be a nice boost for the airlines, one would think. We had that JetBlue option paper not too terribly long ago that was pretty telling as well. That's been moving, but it's been a slower mover than we need it to be with some of those options. So early on, I'm looking at energy. Energy was up about 1.5%, suddenly moved to flat. Then I look over at materials. They were up about 0.6%. They moved over to flat. I look over at the Dow itself. It kind of had a nice move up towards 80 points to the upside. Looking at the NASDAQ as well, up over 100 points to the upside. Well, you had a nice sharp turnaround for the NASDAQ with technology. It was down about 0.25%. Next thing you know, it was up nearly 1%. Semiconductors up about 0.5%. Next thing you know, not too long after that, 45 minutes later, up 2.5%. You get the idea. Nice strength and a nice little move coming from that particular area. I talk about the airlines. That is a sector of strength. And look at American, look at Delta, look at Alaska, all kind of having a pretty nice day. I think Southwest as well. I'll throw that in there. The cruise ships also having a really good day as well with Norwegian and Carnival and Royal. And then I look over at the Chinese names, not all of them, but JD and Nettie's having a pretty solid day. Lulu backing it up with another strong day. And we mentioned those semiconductors. Well, what are some of the names that are moving? NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and I look over at Marvell having a pretty good day. So those all are on the powerful side. And then a lot of those names, of course, are reflected in the NASDAQ. On the Dow side, up about 60 points, but that's not a huge move. But we do see some pressures out there. PayPal, a little bit under pressure, obviously affecting the Dow itself. JP Morgan under some pressure with some of those numbers. I think they might be off of the lows, I believe, last I looked, but they certainly were under some pressure early on with that miss on the earnings. Lucid, Salesforce. I'll tell you what really stands out, Lockheed Martin and some of those defense stocks having a pretty decent day. Throw in Boeing in there as well. Boeing, obviously aerospace, but also defense as well. So let's get a couple of unusuals, and then we're going to jump. I've got the noon show and the 5 o'clock show today, so it's going to be a busy Wednesday for me. It should be a lot of fun. We'll see how things go. We got a really busy desk today. Wow, we got a lot of people coming on there. So I look at this one. Number one, Gap Stores. Now, stock was trading about 14.25. This is a stock that has a very large short interest. My guess is what's happening and why it had such a violent move already is the short squeeze idea because of what the short interest is right now in Gap. Some of those names are obviously moving to the upside. When you've got a short and folks start getting that squeeze, that actually accentuates that move to the upside. The April 14 calls, that means they are trading until tomorrow afternoon and then they're done. 13,000 of those trading. They started at 7 cents for those 14s, went all the way up to about 40 cents. When they started buying the stock, it was about 13.55, all the way up to about 14.25. Gives you an idea that they wanted to get these options. They got these options, and that stock take a nice move to the upside early. Very, very nice. But is it already in place? Or is there more? That was the only options that I'd seen up to now. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Toast is number two. Toast is part of that cloud world, and it's actually geared towards restaurants. Trading around 19. This is a stock that traded much higher than this, but it's trading a little over 19. 7,400 of the May 20 calls getting bought today. Now, those aren't cheap. Those are going for about $2. And oh, by the way, in this particular name, they don't have weeklies. It's only monthly expiring options. It's kind of old school. When I was trading on the trading floors as a specialist back on the Chicago Board Options Exchange, there was no such thing as weeklies. Love the weeklies, and I think they really have added to the ability for folks to kind of position where they want, when they want, and all the rest of it. Folks, have a great day of trading. Look forward to seeing you. I will see you on the noon show. Until then, make sure you get that education. You want to know what's going on within the derivatives markets because there is incredible growth. Have a great day of trading.